Hello, YouTube. This is Greg from GregsTutoringNYC at gmail.com. I'm hoping this live stream's going. I just had a bear of a time trying to get it running. So as I mentioned earlier in the week, the SHSAT Handbook, the new handbook, is out. I understand as of yesterday some kids got it. I didn't hear anything before yesterday, but I know some kids got it. It's still not available online. So what I'm going to do is start jumping into some of the problems. It's a little tough, so what I did is scan in a page, and what I'm going to do is bring it up then. I believe there's a minute lag time on here, so I'm hoping this YouTube is even going through. Alright, so what I'm going to do is work on some math examples and go from there. Again, if you guys want to email me, I'm GregsTutoringNYC at gmail.com. So what I'm going to do is go to page 94, I think it is, for anybody who's ended up having the handbook, and just go through some of the actual things. So let me bring up the page which I scanned in, and hopefully it's going to come up here. And let's just jump right into some of these. So this is the first math question of the first sample. There's 2 samples in every SHSAT handbook. There's also some 9th grade stuff. I'm skipping over the grid-ins at the moment because I want to get this working a little better, as well as you guys having the handbooks yourselves. I normally don't like to tutor by starting straight out with the most recent SHSAT handbook. I like to go further back. But let's just jump into here. So we all start getting a flavor of what's going on. The SHSAT's a slight moving target, so I want to make sure that that everybody's getting the current testing information. That said, the gamut with any test can swing back and forth, and the actual, even though I left 30-some YouTubes about my feeling on this new thing, I left 2 of them about it actually. I'll probably put a link in at somewhere, maybe at the end of this video, at the very last few seconds. I'll modify this once this is done because this is a live stream, and add that info in there so you could just click on that information at the end of this video, I guess. That said, as I mentioned in one of those videos, the actual test is not the same as the actual samples. So we never know that when a corporation like the SAT, or in this case the New York City government, does things like this. So things vary back and forth. Tests are harder certain years, tests are easier other years. Let me just click back on here and see that this seems to still be working. Yes, it does. So I hope that's okay. Welcome live streamers, and welcome replay people. What I want to do is start getting people coming onto here and asking live questions. There's nothing like doing this live, and of course I do tutoring, so I can do one-on-one tutoring, and it may or may not make sense at this point. I've traditionally done one-on-one tutoring. It may make sense for some of us to start getting together. I'm based in New York City, and the test is based in New York City, so therefore you guys are also probably in New York City. Might be some people interested in watching this who are not going to take the SHSAT just because they like fun, hard problems and so on. So all that said, let's try to jump right into the first problem. So it should be on your screen by now. Question number 63 is 3 to the 4th plus 7 to the 4th. So what are they asking us to do here? So what I like to do is look at the answers and also not look at the answers at the same time. One of the problems with looking at the answers is it can kind of start leading you astray. For instance, and the other thing is you can look for patterns in the answers. This is independent and not instead of actually solving the problem. Okay? So this involves exponents. So some kids, because they're both to the power of 4, are going to say 3 to the 4 plus 7 to the 4 is the same as 10 to the 4. Right? Let me kind of bring something up here and see if I can. So in other words, you have this power and this power here. what they're going to do is take these two, because they're the same powers, and add them up. That's a no-go. Because that would give you 10 to the power 4, which would give you answer number D. So that's not correct. That's not what this question is asking you to do. That's not how exponents work. Well, wait a second. An exponent has a base to the power of the exponent. Okay? It's during things like multiplication, where if you had two expressions, where you're going to add the exponent. But when you add two numbers, even if it's the same exponent, you don't do much else with it. So you have to do them independently. Think of PEMDAS. Remember PEMDAS? P-E-M-D-A-S? It says do parenthesis, then exponents, then multiplication and division, and then addition and subtraction. So this is telling us to do the exponents first. Okay. The next thing I'm going to notice is that 3 of the answers have zeros in them, and 1 has a 2. So because this is addition, it could turn out that there's a 0 answer. But I'm hedging my bet that the answer is C. Okay. So 3 to the 4 means 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Yeah, let me bring up another tool here for us to use. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. So 3 to the caret 4. Caret means to the power of 4. That's equal to 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Let me just bring this back to see if it's showing properly. Wait, there's a lag time here. Alright, that looks pretty shiny. I can see coming up. Let me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How about that? Alright, let me just let this catch up with the, what's viewing. Because these digits should now be bigger than the answer digits. Let me do it 1 or 2 more times, actually, then. Because it doesn't look like it is. Alright, there we go. So that's 9 times 9, and that's 81. So we're going to have 7 to the 4 the same way. Equals 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. So we're going to basically get 49 times 49. By the way, you're not allowed a calculator on the SHSAT, so you have to do everything by hand. You're either going to be doing it in your head or you're going to be doing it on a paper. Most people can't do 49 times 49 in their head. Let me try it. I'm going to have to write it out, and I don't really have the situation to do that. Let me try to do it on the screen as best I can. Let me clear this for a second. So we're going to get 49 times 49. Nine times 9 is 1. I'm going to get 8 up here. 36 plus 8 is what? 44. And 6 here. 36 with 3. 16, we get 9 here. We're going to get 1, 0, 4, 1. No, I did that wrong. There should have been another carry here. So I get 2401. So when I come back, to this, and then we're going to have 2401 plus 81 equals 2481. Sorry, 2482. Which, if we come back to the original answers, it will be C. Problem number C. By the way, we didn't actually have to do all the multiplications this way. We could have observed that if we do number sense out of this, that 3 times 3 was 9, and 9 times 81. That gives us a 1 digit in the 1 column. And 7 to the 4th, if we do 49 times 49, we actually only have to do the 9 times 9 to get the 81. So we know there's a 1 in the 1s column from 3 to the 4ths. We also know there's a 1 in the 1s column for the 7 to the 4th. That means if we add those up, we get a 2 in the 1s column. So remember I said before about my hunch that the other 3 was 0? That may have been coincident, it may not have been. Well, it turns out that's a way to double check the answer, and a whole other way to do the answer just by estimating. Because no other answer has that scenario. So therefore, it has to be the one that's going to work here. Okay. All right. Let me try to remove that from there so we can see question number 2. And let's get rid of the red stuff. Oops. Okay, make sure this is showing on the screen properly. No, it's not. Give me 1 second. Bring it down slightly. And make sure I still have a connection. It's giving me a warning, but I think it's okay. All right, so this is just checking normal fractions. Again, this is the grade 8 part, which means you're supposed to be knowing grade 7 math. There's also additional stuff, knowing that you're creative and all this other stuff. SHSAT years ago used to be testing more advanced stuff. They've seemed to be taking those kind of things out, so that you're not going to get a lot of more advanced stuff anymore, it seems, unless you're taking the grade 9 SHSAT, which is for entry to 10th grade. Okay. By the way, a question that pops up often is if you took the SHSAT in grade 8, whether you got into a specialized high school or not, you're still allowed to take your grade 9 test again. And then that's it. You get 2 shots. And if you didn't take it in grade 8, you can still take it in grade 9. All right. The grade 9 test is harder. It's more advanced. There's also a drastic smaller number of seats. So it's a tougher test, and it's a tougher scenario to get in. So, as in all this, do your studying. Okay, so in 64, in 1 week, 1 3/4 inches of rain fell on Monday, 2 2/3 inches fell on Tuesday, and 7/8 of an inch fell on Wednesday. How many inches of rain fell during those 3 days? So give yourself a few seconds to figure that out. If you're not watching this live, you can catch it on the replay, and you can stop the video if you want. All right, so what we want to do is figure out what operation is here and what are we being asked to do, and also analyze some of the answers again. So if we, first of all, the operation is addition. We have 1 week, a certain amount on Monday, a certain amount on Tuesday, a certain amount on Wednesday. How many inches, quote, altogether fell during all those 3 days? So we have implicit words there that we need to add in. So it looks like we're adding all the numbers up. It didn't say what's the total without Tuesday or something like that. It's asking for all 3 days. So what I kind of do in a problem like this is I'll estimate it first. So Wednesday 7/8 is about 1. 1 3/4 is about 2, but not quite. So if I add 1 3/4 and the 7/8, the Monday and the Wednesday things, I'm going to have 2 plus 1 is 3. And Tuesday is 2 more, which is 5. And 2/3. So I might get 5 or 6 or something. 6 is not one of the answers, so it seems like I'm in the range of 5. And even if you take Monday and Tuesday together, there's 1 3/4 and 2 2/3. So that's 2, 3, and plus the 7/8 and the other, that's already 4 for sure. So from there, you definitely ruled out G and H. Okay? You don't even need to do the actual math to figure that out. Again, 1 plus 2 plus about 1, you're already at 4, without even including the 2/3 and the 3/4. So you know the answer can't be G or H. Alright, so now the question is, how do I do this? Well, you can convert them all to mixed fractions. In other words, 1 3/4 is the same as 7/4. 2 2/3 is the same as 8/3. And 7/8 is 7/8. And you can add them together by figuring out what the common denominator is. You can also keep them as mixed fractions. So you can add the fraction part and then the whole numbers. So you could add 3/4 plus 2/3 plus 7/8, and then add 2 plus 1. So that's 3 already. And then you need to add what the fractions are. You still need to resolve what a common denominator is. So the question is, what is the common denominator? There's a few ways to do that. These are simple enough that most people can do it in their head. But what we want to do is write down multiples. The normal, traditional, formal, theoretical way is to start writing down multiples. So you might have 4, 8, 16, just writing multiples of 4, multiples of 3, multiples of 8, and finding the smallest number that they all match up to. Now, it doesn't have to be the smallest number, but it's a common one. So you might as well use the smallest one, because you don't want to be using large numbers to start making mistakes when you're doing double-digit multiplication or something like that. So you want to keep the denominator, normally you want to keep the denominator as simple as possible. Okay, so let me bring up that little notepad thing again. All right, there we go. Well, there's basically a 1 3/4. It's hard for me to write this on the screen properly, but plus 2 2/3 plus, it's basically going to be 0 and 7/8. And we're going to add those all up. So we need to get a common denominator. So this doesn't read too well, so I'm going to just basically do this like 1 3/4 plus 2 2/3 plus 7/8. So we can see that our common denominator is going to be 24. So we get what and how many 24ths? So that's going to be times 6, and 6 times 3 is 18. The next one is 2 2/3, so we have how many 24ths there? That's going to be 8, so we get 16 there. And 7/8 is how many 24ths? We have 3 there, so we're going to get 21, I believe. Let me double check some of that. Yeah, that looks right. So if we add the 3 of those up, we're going to get 3 and 18 plus 16 plus 21. It's going to give us 20, 34, 44, 54. I believe 55 25th? 55 24s. I like to add things from left to right, and then I also do them right to left. So 21 plus 16 is 37, 47, 55. Right. So 55 24 is top heavy. So we get 4. We can only do it once there, so we get 30. We get what? No, it's actually twice. So 5 gives 48, and 7 24ths, which I believe is one of the answers. It's covered up right now. So let me get that uncovered up. It's not working. Let me try something else. Right, so 64 will be E, 5 and 7 24ths. Right, so that's pretty much no-brainer. It's just adding mixed fraction numbers basically. Again, seems too simple. So let me just make sure I have connection going still. It's really lagged behind, so I hope it's actually still going. Let me see if this is actually coming on here. Yes, it is. So an alarm bell will ring when the pressurized gas in a cylinder reaches an internal pressure that is 215% of the maximum allowable pressure. If the maximum allowable pressure is 220 pounds per square inch, at what pressure in pounds per square inch will the alarm bell ring? Alright, so again, you guys can pause the video, try to figure it out. I'm going to bring up the little notepad again. And let me bring it, where's a good place to put it? Probably right there. And let me move the real one on my actual real screen over here. Yeah, okay. So what is this question asking us to do? What I like to do is take these word problems a sentence at a time, and with each sentence break it into phrases, and as I stop at each sentence or each phrase, just try to understand it, ask myself questions. What could be going on here? What are they asking us to do? And I like to map English words into mathematical terms or mathematical operations as I'm reading it. So an alarm bell will ring when the pressurized gas in a cylinder reaches an internal temperature that is 215% of the maximum allowable pressure. So I'm already seeing two keywords there. Is normally means equal, and of normally means multiplication. Okay? An alarm bell will ring when the gas reaches an internal pressure that is 215% of the maximum allowable pressure. If the maximum allowable pressure is 220 pounds per square inch. So we have that same phrase there, the maximum allowable pressure. It's 215% of the maximum allowable pressure. And then they're saying the maximum allowable pressure is 220. So it looks like, I haven't read the end of the sentence, it looks like we're getting 215% of 220. Which again, of means multiplication. So let me finish reading the second sentence. So what I do is I try to analyze things as I'm reading them, to try to make sense of it. By combining, taking the sentence by itself, breaking it into phrase, understand the phrase, build it back up into a super sentence, understand the sentence, and then as we continue on, you're adding to your understanding as you do each piece. And then you're merging stuff. You're merging phrases, you're merging sentences. Okay, so if the maximum allowed pressure is 220 pounds per square inch, at what pressure in pounds per square inch will the alarm bell ring? Okay, so basically you're saying what is 215% of 220? So it basically means what equals 215%. of 220, which means what? Equals 215% times 200. Wait a second, I lost. These should be 220s of 2 of that. So now it's just a matter of doing the multiplication. So again, it's a pain in the neck that you have to do this by hand. To slightly ease it, instead of doing 215 times 220, you can certainly do 215 just times 22. Just remember that you threw a 0 off, so whatever answer you get, you have to add a 0 back onto it. Okay? You're also going to be dividing by 100 because it's 215%. And you'll know that because you're going to get a wacky answer. You might get, instead of, let's say the answer turned out to be G, you would get 558,300. So you know you're going to be far off. Hopefully you make that observation because you'll still have 2 zeros at the end of it. Right? So again, you're going to be doing this by hand. You can write this out. I'm going to do this in my head. So 100% of 220 is 220. So that means 200% of 220 is 440. All right? And it also means 10% of 220 equals 22, which means 5% of 220 equals 11. So why am I writing this? Because it's asking for 200, this one here, and 15%. So 10% and 15%. So basically we're going to have 440 plus 22 plus 11, which is 462, 472, 473. So the answer for 65 would be C. It's just a straight up thing. It's really just mapping the English back and forth. Again, not terribly complicated. And I don't necessarily suggest doing the 215% the way I just did it here. It's kind of sloppy for me to show it to you on this text edit application. But if nothing else, it's a way to do it in your head. Make sure you come up with that number, see it there, and then it's a way of double checking. So double check. Okay. You could also write, what I like to do is, if we used something like the multiplication up here, actually I think that fell off the screen already. If we did 215 times 200, whatever that's equal to, do 200 times 215. It's another way you're going to get a different set of numbers, but the answer at the end should be the same. So if you make a silly error, because this is testing mastery of math, not just understanding, right? You can still be able to figure out something like that. All right? And by the way, for the same reasons, I think it was 2 questions ago, we can kind of start ruling stuff out here. If it said the maximum allowed pressure is 220, and that the internal pressure needs to go to 215%, that's where they got A from. They took 220 plus 15 and got 235. But that's adding a percent to a pounds per square inch. So those are not like units. You can't do that. You can't do that. B goes one step further, which it doesn't just take to 15%. It adds 215 into 220. But he's still adding unlike things. I'm not sure where they got D from. There's probably a way to figure that out. I know this has a 3, and it's, it's 80, it's 110 more. So it's probably, instead of somebody doing 215%, they did 250%. That's probably what happened there. I don't have a calculator handy. I would whip it out and see if that's where that number comes from. But it seems the likely choice there. So again, just in your head, if it's 220 pounds and it was 200%, you know it's 400 and something. So you can rule out A and D right there. Okay? And then it just comes down to actually doing the multiplication right. And not making a silly error in the meantime. Okay? Alright, so that's 65. And I'm just going to do this one page here. This is the only one that's scanned in. It's a little bite-sized piece. There's many, many months now until the SHSAT comes. So there's enough time to kind of figure all this stuff out. And I just noticed that... Oh, no, it's not falling off the screen. Okay. I thought my little notepad fell off the screen. All right, so let's try to bring up another question. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look at the answers in the SHSAT notebook too to see if there's alternate ways to do some of this. Because I was not pleased with all the answers that they gave to all the other questions. Nope, there's no insight there. Okay, 66, I believe. Let me read this. Yeah, I believe 66 can be done in 2 different ways. Let me just make sure 66 is showing on the screen properly. No, it's not. 1 second. Alright, I think the screen looks good now. Should be reflecting that. Just make sure that, because I have about a half-minute delay, then make sure it catches up with that. Give 1 second to make sure you're seeing what I'm saying. Okay, looks like you are. Alright, so 68. A revolving sign makes 1 complete revolution every 90 minutes. If the sign starts moving at 2:30 p.m., at what time will the sign complete 8 revolutions? Alright, so that's interesting. Let me try to move the text edit around because it's still in the wrong place. If I show you guys. Alright, I think that'll fit. One more second again. Again, you guys, my name is Greg from GregsTutoringNYC at gmail.com. I tutor for many specialized tests, the ISEE, the SSAT, the SAT, the PSAT, the Hunter College High School test, and the SHSAT, and a whole bunch of others. Some of them, there's a lot of overlap on them, some of them distinct in their own ways. I also tutor for the AMC and the CML math competitions, and it's good to have examples of a plethora of different things. By the way, we're only focusing on the math questions right now. There's grid-ins. There's also some of the ones we're going over right now are kind of simple. There is definitely harder ones on this sample. There's also the whole ELA section, which is split into 2 parts. One part is about revising and editing pieces of literature that need corrections, and another one is about the standard reading comprehension that you often get on your ELA state tests. Okay, so how do we approach this problem? All right, wait. First, let me bring them up on my own screen so I can read them. Okay, so a revolving sign makes 1 complete revolution every 90 minutes. So 1 rev every 90 minutes. Okay. If the sign starts moving at 2:30, at what time will the sign complete 8 revolutions? So what we really want to do is figure out how long it takes to do 8 revolutions. Let's just call that X. It could be question mark, it could be anything. All right. So if we do the cross product or the butterfly technique, there's a couple ways to do this. But basically you want to do, so this will be minutes here. So you're going to get 1 times, well, X may have been a bad example here. Let's use Y, so that we don't get confused with what's happening. 1 times Y equals 90 times 8. So 1Y is just Y, and Y equals 9 times 8 is 72, and add to 0. That's 720 minutes. Okay, and we want to convert that into hours, most likely, because we're trying to figure out how far to get from 230, and 720 minutes is enough that we should probably convert it to hours and see if there's many units left. So what we're basically going to have is 720 divided by 12, right? If I did that right? No, not by 12, by 60. 60 minutes in an hour. And if you know your multiplication table, you know that's 12 hours, because 6 times 12 is 72 plus 0. So Y was originally minutes, now it's hours. So Y equals 12 hours. So if we started at 2:30 p.m. and we get 8 revolutions in, we're going to have 12 hours. So that brings us to 2:30 a.m. Right? We're using base 12 here. So 2:30 p.m. plus 12 hours is 2:30 a.m., which gives us F. Okay? There's a slightly other way to look at this problem, which is that if a sign makes 1 complete revolution every 90 minutes, right? 1 rev is the same, matches 1.5 hours, right? So if it does 8 revs, then it's going to be 8 times 1.5 hours. And 8 times 1.5 is 12. So we can confirm we get 12 hours this way as well. All right. It's also a ratio. It's also a fraction. Depends how we look at it. It's just slightly different. So in the original case, we basically kept minutes as minutes until the end. In this case, we converted minutes straight up to hours. And if it takes an hour and a half per revolution and there's 8 revolutions, well, that's 12 hours and we still get 2:30. Okay? All right, 67. Let's try to fit that on the screen. Okay, what I think I'm going to do is try to expand this somehow. Not sure we need this notepad anymore. So let's get that off the screen. And let me try to make this a little bigger, if it lets me. Let me see what's going on here. That's too big. Yeah. That's not good. Alright, let's see if that's good. Almost. Sorry, wait a second. All right, that's the best we're going to get everything. So, point Y and Z are not shown on the number line. Because number line that gives us W0, X is 2. Point Y and Z are not shown on the number line above. If X is the midpoint of line W, Y, so we see W, but we don't see Y, and Y is the midpoint of WZ, where on the number line would point Z be located? So again, you can pause the video at this point and try to solve this yourself. Let me bring up my little red pencil thing here. So we have Y and Z are not shown. Okay. X is the midpoint of YZ. So X is the midpoint. So if it's 2 units from here to here, then that implies that Y is going to be 2 more units over. So that implies Y is here. Okay, so let's run it through again. Point Y and Z are not shown on the number line above. If X is the midpoint of line WY, and Y is the midpoint of WZ, wait, sorry, if X is the midpoint of WY, so it is. And now Y is the midpoint of WZ. So we have a second consideration there. So if Y is indeed 4, then it's the same kind of problem. If it's 4 units to here, it's going to be another 4 units to Z. Okay. So that implies the answer is 8. So let's run it through again. Point Y and Z are not shown on the line above. If X is the midpoint of WY, so WY is 4 points, which means X is 2. That's correct, that's true. And Y is the midpoint of WZ. So if Y is 4 and W was 0, then if Z is 8, then Y would be the midpoint at 4, and that's correct. So that means the answer for 67 is D. All right. That's all I have for you guys today. I only scanned in one page. We've been on here for a bit anyway, 40 minutes actually, and wish everybody luck. Again, I'm Greg at GregsTutoringNYC at gmail.com. Hope everybody has a good day. I'll be trying to do these every so often. I'm not sure how much. As I said, I'm going to put a link here to some general comments about this handbook versus other years. You could also look at my, definitely subscribe, like this video, and look through my other videos, because I cover a lot of grade 7 and grade 8 math, as well as a poetry section. I did a YouTube on poetry, and a YouTube on analyzing the ELA, and so on and so on and so on. There's a lot of other ones that just have general talk about the SHSAT and how to approach it and things like that. All right, so peace out, everybody, and have a great day.